All right, Indianapolis Colts draft review here, as some really strong picks by the Colts. I thought specifically the first two picks I thought were great. I have some questions as we get further on, but even some picks I liked later on, so we can get into it. Starting off with, so just so you know what you see on the screen, the number all the way to the left, that is when the player was selected. Next number over is when they were projected to go according to the consensus big board, and then the player name and the position. Leulatu, edge rusher, who I really liked. There are some medical issues, but the way I see it, we saw him the most recent time we've seen him play. He looked great, like it was last year. It's not like he had put great film on and then got the injuries. He got the injuries, was able to come back and then play very well. So yeah, there is some concerns there, but not enough to warrant not drafting him, in my opinion. He was the best edge rusher on my board. I think he should have been considered the best edge rusher, even though some people like Dallas Turner more. He's just someone who consistently wins. And the Dallas Turner versus Leulatu, it's almost like on a smaller scale, the Aiden Hutchinson versus Trayvon Walker argument, right? Of like, would you rather the guy who is just a better player or the guy who maybe has more athleticism? Well, Latu is a really good athlete as well, and just consistently wins. So I think he's really good. Is going to be a good edge rusher for quite some time for the Colts, as long as he stays healthy, which there's a very good chance that happens, and we all hope it happens. We then had, Adonai Mitchell, who, listen, I had my notes with Adonai Mitchell as well. I was not someone who, when people were talking about him as a first rounder, I was like, that's a bit high for me. But at 52, especially for the Colts, who could really use a receiver, especially someone who can win down the field, I think that's something that really we've seen them miss from their game. Alec Pierce on occasion has done it, but not consistently enough. If he can be a downfield threat, you got Michael Pittman, who can win down the field and be over the middle. He can kind of do it all. And then Josh Downs, who can, do his thing with the Indianapolis Colts. This feels like this could be a really strong receiving core, and Alec Pierce as a receiver 4 could be a lot nicer for you. So I don't know. I think this is a really strong top 2 selections, and for a team that has, pick 15 and pick 52, nailing those top 2 picks is really important. I think they did that. I'm someone who is a pretty big fan of this part of the draft. We then get to some questions. So Matt Gonclave's just a prospect I don't get what people see in with him, really. So I haven't done a deep dive compared to some other people that I evaluated, because he was someone who I kind of did some research on, said, okay, he's not going to make my top list or anything. So I didn't fully do a deep dive in his game. But from what I saw, he was projected to go 131st, ends up going 78th, which is a reach according to the consensus big board. He's someone who, doesn't have great athleticism. Is a big guy, 6'6", 330. I guess you like that about him, but also doesn't have a lot of great production in college. So it's like, okay, not a great athlete, not great production. He has size. You can't teach size, but I don't know. I think that there were better prospects on the board for me. But again, I've been wrong before. So usually the Colts do a pretty good job at drafting good offensive line prospects. But usually I've actually agreed with when they've drafted those guys. This is a time when I disagree. But I won't crush him too much, because I did really like the next pick, Tanner Bortolini. I'm not sure exactly how you say his last name, unfortunately, but he's a good player. He might make me learn how to say it, because someone who is really athletic and also has production. So he has both of the other stuff. Now, his last year, he had the most playing time in a season, and it was probably his worst season. But, still does have quality production at the center position. I think that the concern is this last year was not his best year, and he had the most playing time. So that's the concern. But, it's listed as a negative of he's not super big, but plays center and is 6'4". I don't. Yeah, that's pretty big for a center, so I don't know if I agree with that whatsoever. We then have wide receiver Anthony Gould, who is, you read his profile of he's 170 pounds, 5'8", but, athleticism off the charts. Okay, got it. He runs a 4.3. He's the, a slot guy, you would assume, in this scenario, and maybe someone who can, on the occasion, win on the occasional outside threat. Is really shifty, and quite frankly, I'm surprised that he was projected to go as far as he did. It's 198, but I'm fine with this reach right here at 142. I think he's a good player, and just because there's maybe things that he can't do, I feel like there's enough things that he can do that he should at least be a good wide receiver 4, but could possibly be a great wide receiver 3. So this is I think, a really smart decision by the Colts and a real win for me personally. I think this is a really smart move. Next up are back-to-back safeties that people have speculated maybe shouldn't be drafted at safeties. So first, Jalen Carley's, is maybe how you say his name, was projected to go nearly 100 picks later than they selected him at, so that's never ideal. But it makes me wonder, do they feel like he could be just a safety? So he's someone who a lot of people are wondering, should he be a linebacker? He's 6'3", 230, so maybe you add 10 pounds, you're in the linebacker range. There's 230 linebackers. You can be that size at the linebacker position. I think a lot of people felt, though, that it's more of kind of has a bit of a stiffness, isn't quite as shifty as you might like for a safety. Runs a 4.5, so would be a quick linebacker in that scenario. There's reason to be interested in him, but for a guy who you might be drafting to change positions, usually that's a little bit higher than you would see him go for, unless it's like you're a super athlete or something like that, which he isn't, but is athletic. Just not quite super shifty to play a safety position, a lot of people feel. You then have Jalen Simpson, who he was kind of the opposite, where people were wondering, could he be a corner? Because he is very quick, and you can do things that way. And he's played corner, so it's not like he's a complete projection there. He's actually done that, so that's interesting. But again, listen, the fact that both these guys play multiple positions is a benefit, right? The fact that you can get multiple guys who, let's be honest, picking in the mid 100s are probably going to be starting off as backups. If you're backups in multiple different positions, well, then that's, saving you roster spots. You don't need, if you want to have two backup safeties, why don't you have two backup safeties, a backup linebacker, and a backup corner, all with just 2 picks, right? So there's some benefits there. You then have Micah Abraham, who is a smaller guy as well, 185, 5'9", so not someone who you look at and think threatening. Do a good job at getting to the ball. And I think you wonder if he's sort of a slot guy who you hope can come in and get his hands on the ball that way. Another guy though that was definitely he was projected to go undrafted by a pretty good margin, 371st on the consensus big board, which is over 100 picks after the draft ends. So, but again, we're in the 200s now. I still don't love this, but I'm not going to crush it too much. Finally, you have the Oklahoma player, Jonah Lau, who is a player that, the production wasn't great. Production wasn't great by Jonah Lau, so you kind of wonder what exactly did they see in someone like him. He was projected to go undrafted and nearly did, picked 234, but still, I think what it really comes down to is people like some of his traits and feel like he's a coachable type player. So for the Colts, they're willing to take a chance at 234. Okay, fine. I can see the logic there. So as a whole, a bit of an inconsistent draft, but I would say a good draft by the Colts. I didn't love every pick, but again, they nailed the top 2. That's what they had to nail. Got some picks that I liked across the board further on. A couple of what I think will look like misfires, but even the misfires have potential to be good. So misfire would be the wrong word. A couple of picks I wouldn't have made, but could still work out for the Colts. It's probably the better way to phrase it. So yeah, that's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.